Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am breaking out of my shell once again today. And I'm back sharing another part of my journey to become debt free. As you know by watching my previous videos, um, I am on the debt free journey using the Dave Ramsey baby steps, 7 baby steps. So I dedicated myself to sharing um, my journey to becoming debt free. Um, when I started, I anticipate my debt is somewhere around 50K, $50,000, and so it's kind of difficult for me to give us an exact number because I'm still gathering old accounts and different bills and stuff and writing them out on a log sheet, and I'll share that with you guys when it is all completed. But today, what I wanted to talk about is cutting spending. So, um, when we talk about getting out of debt, we need to make sure that we first can increase our income and cut our spending. And I told you in a previous video that last year, I don't know, I was hustling around and I made somewhere probably above $15,000 to $16,000 for the year, and it was kind of crazy because I was shoving things around and I was struggling based on what I was trying to do, keeping my bills paid, my house note, my rent, my car note, my car insurance, and utilities, cell phones, and things of that nature, right? So I talked about, when I initially got into Dave Ramsey and listening to his program, also getting the Every Dollar app and putting in what my income was versus what my um, personal expenses were and the bills that I knew about. Of course, it told me I needed to increase my income, which didn't come as a surprise to me. But today, I'm not talking about increasing my income because I'm going to share a video on that too, as to how I've been increasing my income. But I want to talk about cutting expenses. Um, I talked about that a little bit in a previous video. How our culture is used to keeping up with the Joneses. We want to go on the vacations. We want to go to the liquor store, the grocery, the nail shop, the barber shop, the hair salon. We want to have the expensive clothes, cars, and we want to look the part, even though we're broke. So Dave, of course, always talks about living on beans and rice. That's his term for saying cut your expenses to the bare bones, right? So I'm going to tell you 3 things that I did. The last thing was very emotional for me, and I'll tell you the third thing that was very emotional for me to cut, and I'm having a hard time even going through with it, but I know that I've got to do it. But I'll tell you about that in a minute. Let me talk about the first things that I cut. Um, and I did this a while ago. So um, when I first got here about in South Carolina 4 years ago, I lived in my house for a year and a half by myself, and I was struggling to pay the bills again because I didn't have the adequate income to do so. So what I did is I got a roommate, right? So I've had this roommate for about 2 years now, and you would think that with me having a roommate that things would go a little easier. And I couldn't figure out why things weren't going easier. Um, even though I had a roommate that was splitting half the bills, half the rent, like gas. Well, not gas because we don't have gas, but rent, electricity, water, and internet. I didn't even have cable because I cut the cable out because I couldn't afford it. And so, but I was still trying to figure out why, um, why I couldn't get ahead. And the gist of it all is because again, um, I wasn't I was making money, but I was working at a hospital at the time, and I was making money, but I was behind on everything. So I was still living paycheck to paycheck and making very little money, and so yeah, it took the pressure off of having to pay all the expenses by myself, so I could keep a roof over my head. But I wasn't managing money, and I didn't. I was thinking to myself, if I had found Dave Ramsey back when I first got my roommate, and I understood that okay, go, that's a part of cutting expenses, but then I was still in the same mindset of working this little job trying to do the same thing when I should have been trying to increase my income then, right? But it's just, I don't know. I think it was really just my upbringing. My I'm not gonna say my upbringing, but my thinking. All these years, of just maintaining the the household bills and ignoring the debt that I had accumulated because when I got here, I couldn't afford the things that I needed, and so I started using credit cards and all that and those kind of things to keep me afloat. So, um, and so just still thinking about maintaining the the four walls, if you will, is what Dave refers to them, and that's still been my mindset. I've just always been in survival mode up until just recently when I found Dave's program, and I started listening to his podcast or the YouTube channel, and I started thinking to myself, I need to change my mindset. So I've had a roommate for about, like I said, probably 2 years or so, and it's been a godsend. And so now my household expenses per se um, is not a lot. That plus my car note and car insurance, I probably need to bring in at least $1,600 a month just to cover those items, which is excellent, right? And so, again, I'll talk to you about how I've been able to increase my income to take care of those that portion of my life, my four walls, and contribute to the household. So that's the one thing. Um, I cut my expenses, and again, that was done before I even got into the Dave Ramsey sphere. Um, the second thing that I did, along with cutting household expenses or um, the like, was I started to utilize the the food pantries in the area where I could cut my grocery bill, which um, has helped me substantially. And so going to the food pantries, you'll probably see a couple of old videos on there because I don't know, I started sharing these things back in the late part of last year, 2024 or so, when I was talking about getting debt free and cutting expenses and things. So I did a few videos on going to the pantry, to the food pantry, and the things that I was able to get going to the food pantry. And so I did that even before, again, before I came into the Dave Ramsey sphere. And so, again, I've been working towards um, doing those things, but I didn't have structure. I just knew that there was something that I needed to do, but I didn't have structure. So the Dave Ramsey Baby Steps is giving me structure. It's giving me the tools that I need to really put um, to really put or to really activate because or put into practice is what I'm trying to say because I in my mind I knew I needed to do these things and actively I was doing some of the things like cutting my expenses by getting a roommate or going to the food pantry and doing more things to try to increase my income. So those were the things that I was actively working on. And so what I did, I printed out a copy of my bank statements and all to kind of see where my money was going, and taking a look at some things. I'm like, man, I've cut down um, everything. Again, I don't have cable, and I don't have a lot of subscriptions, which you know wasn't an issue for me because I wasn't big on watching cable anyway. Um, but I recently had to do something that really hurt me. Um, and I was kind of thinking I didn't really want to share this part, but I'm going to go ahead and share it because I said I was going to be true and transparent to my journey. So I tell you in the video, I told you in my videos that I was raised on welfare. My mother had four children. She raised us on welfare. We wasn't into budgeting, and there was no talk about finance or anything of that nature because of that reason. You didn't learn personal finance in school, so those are things. But my mother was a single mother. She raised four children on welfare. Again, she eventually took a job later on after my youngest sister um, got to be a graduate or almost out of high school. And um, she did work for probably about 10 or 12 years after that. And then she the, her job got cut and she didn't work anymore. And when she stopped working, I want to say she was in her mid to late 60s because I remember her going to apply for Social Security. Well, of course, when you don't work for the majority of part of your life, your Social Security is not going to be much. She didn't have anything for retirement or anything of that nature. So, um, she's living on the bare minimum, and that's something that you know, I definitely don't want to do, and that's another reason for me getting fighting against this debt and trying to get out of debt so that I can start to save for retirement and that I can have something to live on and that I don't mimic um, what what my mother's life has become. And so I want to kind of talk about what struggle I have at this point, what emotion I have to the last thing I did to cut expenses, and I just kind of did that this past weekend. So with my mother being on a limited income, um, she she has a place that she rents, and the rent was uh, she couldn't afford really. The last couple of years, the rent has gone up, and she hasn't been able to afford that. So uh, I had started. I combined her cell phone bill with my phone bill, and I started to. I was paying her bill along with my bill, and I've been doing that for the last 4 years. So, well, almost 4 years now. Um, so what ended what what I've had to do is look at my own circumstances and say, the cell phone bill. I ended up, separating the accounts because of a business that I started. So I'm starting to use. I got my own account, and I gave her set up her own account. So it's two separate phone bills. But on my account, I had two lines. I added two lines because one is a business line and one is my personal line. And I'll talk about my business at some point. But then I separated her bill so that she could have that because I wanted to have my own bill for tax purposes as I established my business. And so I gave her own account, but I continued to still pay the cell phone bill. The cell phone bill, along with her, when I separated it, it was along with her Netflix bill. So roughly $75 a month. Now I know people might say though $75 is not a lot, but it is if you are trying to get out of debt and you're trying to cut expenses wherever you can. And it was hard for me to um, reach out to my mom and tell her that I could no longer handle her cell phone bill because I was paying it even though I didn't have the money. I would find other ways to pay it. I would neglect my car payment or put off my insurance payment to pay both of our cell phone bills, and I'm going through all this juggling, right? And so, how do they say you can't help people if you can't help yourself? And then sometimes I would call up my son and be like, can you shoot me $100 for this, or can you do this for me? Because I was running short. And then I started to see that I'm falling into that pattern of relying on my children when I shouldn't be. When I'm able-bodied, I'm 56, and I'm still able to work. I'm still able to hustle. So I told myself I don't want to live that life. And so it was an emotional thing because I hear all the time where people call in and Dave says, the Bible says honor your mother and your father, which it does say that. But and at the same time, that doesn't mean that that's the only way that you can honor them is by paying for their expenses, especially if you can't afford to pay for their expenses. Um, there are some things that I know my mom didn't do in her life and didn't set herself up for. And I'm trying to encourage her to make some other changes in order to be able to afford her own life. But I felt kind of guilty because my brother has been helping take care of her expenses and helping her with her. Oh man. So I'm sorry about that. That's my neighbor across the street, and he started using the saw for some reason. So I'm probably gonna need to take the rest of this video inside. So give me a second. I want to do that because I don't want to cut this video short. And let me see what we're gonna do here. Wow. So, in any event, that was live, right? So, any event, I'm gonna bring that down a little bit. My brother's helping with her expenses because just her basic necessities. And so that's the life that I don't want to find myself in. It's emotional for me to tell her that I can't take care of that at this point in my life because I need to find money to start putting towards debt, and I don't need the extra anxiety of worrying about whether her phone stays on or not. And it's horrible because to me, it's because she lives in Detroit still, and I'm here in South Carolina, and I want to be a person that can help provide for her. She's in her lower 80s, So the thought that she's gonna do, she's gonna be able to take care of herself frightens me. So I do want to be in a position to help, but I'm just not in that position right now. So sometimes we have to do the hard things, and I realize that, and it's in no way showing disrespect to my mom or anything of that nature. I wanted to share my journey without sharing too much of her information, but I just needed you guys to understand why I was paying it in the first place. And why I'm going to need to go ahead and stop that for now. Maybe once I become debt free, I can take that back on again. But it's important for me to use every dollar I can to focus on getting myself out of debt and setting myself up for life so that I'm not at some point in my 80s and not able to afford basic housing for myself and relying on my children, who will then be probably, uh, you know, child free at that point because their kids are growing older and they'll probably be wanting to set up their own lives too. And that's what, and that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be setting up their lives and thinking about how they want to spend their years after their children are raised and gone out of the house, and not being looking back at me and saying, Mom, what do you need now? You know, um, or me having to move in with them or whatever. So it's an emotional thing for me, to have a, you know, cut my mom's cell phone bill out of my budget. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Please um, like this video, leave your comments. What do you think? How are you feeling? If you're on a debt-free journey, are you, do you have an older parent or parents that you've been responsible for, or that you felt a responsibility to? Um, and just, what have you cut out of your budget that's going to help you get debt free? So my next video, I am going to talk about the things that I'm doing to increase my income. I'm going to talk more about the business that I started and how that's going. So stay tuned. Please like this video, leave your comments, share the video, subscribe if you have not subscribed. I'm looking for those that are on a debt-free journey, particularly those of my culture. I started sharing more of this journey, the Dave Ramsey journey, because many people feel that, or some people feel that Dave Ramsey is not for our community because, our community has grown up, or some of them have grown up in the same circumstances that I've grown up in. But I want to share this journey to show how possible it is if you do the work. So again, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all you do. And you always have a great day. See you next time.